Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I am Josh, that is Jimbob, and that is Jason over there. This is Conversations on the Fringe, live with you every Friday night on the journey into the unknown, into the unspeakable, into the mysteries of the world, of those things that just aren't normally talked about in everyday life. We are joining you 30 minutes late tonight. I apologize. I was just explaining to them, I was on a podcast with Joe Oltman. If you guys don't know who I am, the Conservative Daily. It's www.conservative-daily.com. Great podcast. I had a blast. It was kind of cool. We were drinking whiskey on a podcast on Friday afternoon, so it was really cool. Me, Joe, and Max had a great conversation. Thank you so much to them for having me on, and I got the invite back, so I'm like, yeah, it was a great time. We talked a lot about diversity, equity, inclusion, environment, social justice, governance, social justice, all these. It was kind of it was a really conservative type based conversation, and Joe is just a fantastic guy as well. So had a great blast with them, but I got back a little late, so I apologize. But now the fun really begins tonight. This is Conversations on the Fringe. We got Jimbob Ovalshorts with us tonight. We're going to be talking about ancient conspiracies. We're going to be talking about a lot of different conspiracies. And Jay's like, dude, let me join in. I want in on this. I'm like, come on in, Jay. Let's have some fun. You know, typically this is we're going to call this whiskey and beer, right? Or whiskey and beards.
Whiskey and beards. I think this is a great name.
So we all got whiskey and we all got beards. So might as well just have fun with it, right? Me and Jay were just talking. So this is kind of a new announcement, but we're in negotiations right now to do a radio show. And so an actual on-the-radio broadcast. So this is going to be kind of cool. It's going to be new for us. Can't really mention any other more details on it. But I was just telling Jason that we're planning it out, that the show is going to be called Dark Delight. So it's the Dark Delight show on the radio with Josh Reid. I'll let everybody know when it comes out. You'll be able to listen live on the internet through their station, the station's channel, or on Podbean and so forth. We're kind of contemplating how to do it, but because there's some other things going on in the midst of that. But really cool. It's going to be a pretty cool show. We're going to be talking about Agenda 2030. We're going to be talking about the old Agenda 21, Codex Alimentarius. We're going to be talking about the plot to infiltrate the United States of America with communism. Everything that you can think under that umbrella is what we're going to talk about. We might even talk about the occult and different aspects of that. I had to kind of throw that by the producers and see what they said, but really excited. So really good day, kind of just having a celebratory drink. I'm drinking some Jefferson's Reserve, very old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. It's really tasty whiskey, by the way. So, and I talked to these two gentlemen today, and they're like, let's do a show. And I'm like, let's do it. Let's talk about really whatever the heck we want to talk about tonight. But I think Jay was just talking about some Facebook page. What is this Facebook page? Oh, by the way, hold on. How are you guys doing? How are you, Jay? How are you, Jimbo?
Just fine with you, bud.
Yeah, I'm animated as shit tonight, so I apologize.
Yeah, I'm good. You know what? I've kind of missed everybody in doing this. I was really excited to get back on. But, the AI that is within my phone has really learned who I am. And so on Facebook, it feeds me everything that interests me. And this page comes up, and it's called Unsolved Mysteries and Paranormal Activities. And so it just gives you a little snippet of something, or, and it really just brings up the inquisitive part of me, and then I'm like, ooh, I've really got to dig into that. And one of the ones that got me really good is that according to the accounts written down on the Sumerian king list, 8 immortal lords ruled over Earth, ancient Mesopotamia, for 241,000 years before the Great Flood. And after the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was Eardog. And Eardog, Illumin, became king, and he ruled for 28,800 years. And I just thought to myself, wait, kind of sounds familiar, like a story about Middle Earth, doesn't it?
Right.
That is kind of interesting.
Right. And all of a sudden, I'm like, it just kind of smacks you in the face. And, so I'm like, man, I really want to dig into this. Now, I don't know if Jimbob's ever dug into this part of history.
Actually, it's funny that you say that that's what it sounds like, because Token himself claims that the stories he wrote came from historical books he found in the bottom of a library.
Interesting.
So, I mean, could he have read that kind of stuff right there, and that's where he come up with the idea?
Very well could have been.
Very well could have been. Well, you know what's interesting is they talk about Eredug there, and Al-Lumen became king, and he ruled for 28,800 years. Now, this could be like a mathematical error, because 26,500 years, and so that would be 26,500 and 28.8 is, I believe, 2,300 years. So that'd be another precessional age. So this would be one precessional age plus one into the new precessional age. And a lot of this variation is talking about the precessional aspect of the equinoxes. So when they say immortal lords, they could be talking about a precessional sign in the sky of how it rules within the heavens.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Or they could be talking about some kind of like immortal freaking being in the universe that, like, who knows?
I watched a video the other day, I guess talking in that same realm about where somewhere in the Sphinx is supposed to be not the capstone, but like the stones below the capstone of the pyramid, and that these stones form some kind of ship when found, and help create the vibration of reality by whomever like touches it and launches it off with their their aura, or however they explained it. It was pretty interesting.
So guys,
when you think about that, because with the pyramids, I guess getting into ancient stuff, the capstone is not there, and then there's also some missing stones there, and the carbon dating shows that the stones that are at the top are older than the stones at the base.
Right. As well as the Great Pyramids of Giza used to be outfitted with, I believe it was a, what was the material? Was it granite outers? It was a white granite?
Yeah, it was more of like a white marble, like almost outside. Like it was, they said, everything says that they were like white and smooth, not the sandstone that we kind of see today.
Now, what's interesting about that, and guys, I will try to slow down. I'm just really excited. I'll try to slow down.
Somebody said, I don't think Josh can talk any faster, and here he is.
Yeah, and here he is. So, I was listening to Stage of Time by Matthew LaCroix, and I don't have any association with Matthew. I've invited him on the show. We'll see if he comes on. I've read the book a few times, and it's a great book, great perspective. Jay, this is the Serpent and the Eagle. Okay, but one thing that
we've talked about a lot.
Yeah, which we've talked about a lot. Now, one thing that he talks about in the book is the ley lines. Now, ley lines are kind of, if you think about it in the sense of how electricity flows, ley lines on Earth would kind of be like the electromagnetic conduits of where energy flows with the least amount of resistance on the planet. And there's certain originations of how these ley lines actually formulate, and there's a structure and a geometry. Now, all of these ancient sites are built on these ley lines, and it's theorized that the pyramids were utilized as resident chambers to increase the resonance itself of the earth, to help humanity increase its own material resonance, to somehow match its spiritual resonance, which is known as the Ka. Now, in ancient Egypt, your Ka is known as your soul, or your consciousness that's trapped within the body of illusion. And the objective is to get the body to match the resonance of the Ka, of the soul, to come out of illusion. Now, we've heard this before in multiple different philosophies and traditions in ancient mysticism, is you coming into enlightenment is removing the veil of illusion and getting rid of illusion. Satan, or Lucifer itself, is depicted as this bearer of illusion, right? This bearer of deception, the deceptive reality. And so we start to see that materialism or material body actually formulates this, in that the earth grids themselves, the electromagnetic earth grids, are actually these resonant lines of electromagnetic conduits that reinforce the spiritual attributes that are meant to raise the consciousness of the body to match that of the soul. And it's kind of an interesting perspective.
Especially when you dig further into, like, or if you're into more of the pyramids being actually scattered all over the earth, not just there in Egypt. Because I mean, they even things that maybe aren't pyramids that really look like pyramids in other places because they're covered in trees and such now. But like that kind of thought process or story or whatever could really go with all of them, because I mean, they all somewhat have similar stories behind them or inside of them anyway, like Machu Picchu and such like that. Like,
go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Yeah, I mean, you got the monks mounds all over the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
monks bread.
There's definitely, I just had some. That's
some good stuff.
It is good shit. But when you look at this and you look at, I 100% think that we've been lied to about the history of the past, right?
The 1,000 years added to the timeline.
100%. We've definitely been misled. And interestingly enough, you have that TikTok. I think you said it was a 3-part series of timelines that are happening during these events, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what?
There's actually even stuff that I have saved with those timeline stuff that I haven't actually put on the video yet. I just didn't know how to, like, I guess, really place them. There was a young man who was there to witness Abraham Lincoln's murder at the theater, lived long enough to talk about it on television.
What?
His name was now I gotta pull it up now that I brought it up. His name is Seymour. He was the last living eyewitness to Lincoln's assassination, and he got onto I've Got a Secret February 1956, where he was 95 years old and told his story of witnessing Abraham Lincoln being killed.
That's nuts, isn't it?
It really is nuts.
Or we can get into how President John Tyler, the 10th president, living grandchildren today.
Right.
Like grandchildren, not great-grandchildren or great-great-grandchildren, grandchildren.
Yep.
Because his last wife, he had kids born in 1853.
Well, his last son was like 68 when his last kid was born, I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
And he is now 93, living in a nursing home in Virginia.
Well, not unless the governor gets a hold of him with COVID mandates.
Right.
Yeah. But when we look at all of these pyramids built throughout the world, right?
Yeah.
And then there's this. So Australian Aboriginal symbols are found on a mysterious 12,000-year-old pillars in Turkey. A photo showing one of the pillars at the Göbekli Tepe, Turkey, with a symbol carved out of it, and an elder Australian Aboriginal with the same symbol. The symbol is used by Aborigines to show two people sitting and sharing knowledge. Is it just a coincidence? There's no effing way. And that's why I say is that this world was connected in a much different way. In some place, some time, somebody did something. Some people did something bad, right? And they changed the way we live.
Absolutely.
Well, Russell, I think his name's Russell Carlson. You have what's his other name? The British researcher. But they've talked about this a lot in the Upper Dryas period, 12,500 years ago to 10,500 years ago, that there was some type of cosmic event that occurred, and this could have been anything from a coronal mass ejection from the sun or a comet even hitting the planet. Now, this is interesting because if you guys have been watching the Redpill night streams, there's a documentary being played on there. Okay? Now, this documentary is about the electric Earth theory or the electric universe theory. Okay? It's called Thunderbolts of the Gods. And what it talks about is it gets into a book by an astronomer by the name of Velikovsky, who talked about worlds in collision and how Venus is actually a captured comet by the sun. This is why Venus actually orbits backwards. And that would happen.
Make a lot of sense.
What happened potentially 10,000 years ago or 12,000 years ago, because think about this. If there was a highly advanced civilization, Atlantis, Lemuria, all these stories, if they had a high level of technology like the pyramids, why wouldn't they be able to see a comet or an asteroid or even a coronal mass ejection coming to not be able to stop it? It doesn't make any sense unless that happened by accident. And the theory is what if there was some type of planet that blew up in our solar system, and it caused massive chaos in the solar system, which if you go into Thunderbolts of God, it talks about electrical currents occurring between the sun, Jupiter, and Saturn. And these long currents stream through the sky as plasma. And this is where the Thunderbolts of the Gods came from and kind of a lot of this stuff. But if you think about it, it starts to make sense that this would cause massive cataclysms with the planets in between wherever that cataclysm took place. Now think about Mars and the asteroid belt right after Mars, Ceres. The Ceres asteroid belt, right, was a destroyed planet. Mars itself was destroyed. It's right after this that we have the Earth obviously going through some very, very tumultuous times about 10,000, 12,000 years ago. Now, it's interesting because if you go to ancient Mesopotamia, there actually is a story. And the story is about the destruction of Tiamat. So it's said that Marduk destroyed Tiamat, and that Tiamat's blue, salty waters were flowing, were thrown across the earth. Now, researchers like a person by the name of Michael Tessarian, which is David Whitehead's mentor, have talked about how Tiamat was a planetary body that existed between Mars and Jupiter. And that what happened is there is some type of electrical phenomena that happens with our sun. This is how our sun actually, it's not a nuclear explosion that's occurring there. It's actually an electrical occurrence, a plasmic relationship with the center of the galaxy. And like a big surge of energy came, and what happened is at that moment in time, it destroyed this planet Tiamat, which was a primarily saltwater planet. Now, it's interesting because they describe it in ancient mysticism as a shining blue planet that, looked at from Earth, would share the brilliance of the sun. And that even during the day, its brilliance would be so bright that it would compete for the brightness of the sun. Now, think about what that sounds like. That sounds like the story of Lucifer, right? Uh-huh. And then it's blown up. It's cast down to Earth from the heavens after sun, the god, destroys it, and its waters are cast down to earth. Now, try to go find an anthropologist or someone out there and ask them where the salt waters came from on the planet. They don't know.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to answer that.
They don't have the answer to that. And so, what if the salt waters are relatively new here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw an article the other day. Yeah, I just saw an article the other day that new techniques in carbon dating have made researchers go back and start redating everything.
Yeah.
And that a lot of the Pleistocene dinosaurs that they talked about that are 230 million years old, the Jurassic period, the Cretaceous period, so forth, are now turning out to only be about 30,000 years old.
Mm-hmm. No.
Right.
Yep.
And did you see the thing about the octopuses being basically confirmed they're not from this planet?
I've seen that they seem to be an intelligent life form, in that there is no evolutionary methodology of how they evolved on this planet.
Yeah. So I've always had this theory, by the way, a couple things. I've always had this theory that somebody just brought these fucking animals here. They were like, watch us fuck these people up. And they threw out a duck-billed platypus, right? Like, how does a giraffe, how the hell, what did that evolve from?
Like that Earth episode of South Park from all those years ago, where it was a television show and they just mixed people from things from different planets. They put them all together on one just to watch.
Eat their popcorn.
Like, where I am in my age, in my life, I'm like, man, somebody needs to bring in different animal from another planet so we can start to eat that, because like everything's getting a little old, right? Like how many times can you have steak and chicken, right? Like, you know,
go to what Jimbob was just talking about there, Jay. What if Tiamat, this planet, was destroyed somehow cosmically, okay, and it was a planet made up primarily of salt water, what happens as that salt water enters space?
It goes into
it freezes. Yeah, it goes into a solid state. What happens to cold-blooded animals?
They just go dormant. They don't
dormant. They don't die. So the octopus could have been from this planet, came here on a comet, and landed in the freshwater oceans, and then turned into salty, and then just evolved over time.
Plausible.
Wow.
You know what?
We just saw that. Take that, science!
Yeah. That's hilarious, right?
Yeah.
But that's like going back to like weird timelines and stuff. Like, I guess another random fact I had out there was like, all right, so the first fax machine was officially created in 1843.
What?
All right, it was the first time you could get a printed telegraph.
Oh.
So Abraham Lincoln being assassinated in 1865 means that there's a 22-year window when the samurai, since the last house didn't go out till 1867, could have sent a fax to Abraham Lincoln.
That's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Right? Like, it's just like you don't realize how close everything really is, even though it's not far away too. Like, one of the big ones everybody noticed out of that video is Betty White was older than Martin Luther King and Anne Frank, and Anne Frank and Martin Luther King were born the same year.
Well, that's interesting.
It really is, right?
Wait,
like,
what? Anne Frank?
Let him say it again.
Anne Frank and Martin Luther King were born the same year, and Betty White is 7 years older than both of them.
Wow. That's kind of crazy.
Right.
It's okay.
It's not crazy that they're dead. It's crazy that she was that old.
Harriet Tubman was born during Thomas Jefferson and died during Ronald Reagan.
That's a brain. Yeah. That's a brain screw.
Right? Like it's just like, how does this? Jimmy Carter being the first president ever born in a hospital.
Yep, I knew that one.
All right. Harvard being founded before calculus was invented.
Yep, I knew that one.
All right. Star Wars coming out the same year as the last guillotining in France.
Josh wasn't even born.
Nope, I wasn't even born yet.
What was that, 77?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charlie Chaplin and Adolf Hitler being born the same year. And it's also the same year that the Eiffel Tower was inaugurated and Van Gogh painted Starry Night.
That's kind
that
of,
one gets me.
Van Gogh gets me.
Yeah.
Because you think of it so much older.
Okay.
Exactly.
Picasso was still alive when Dark Side of the Moon came out.
No.
Yeah, I know. Yep, right.
Yep.
See, there's these points in history, and maybe it's because you learn these things when you're young.
And
right?
you think that this timeline is just set a specific way, like the way you're taught it.
Mm-hmm.
But these things aren't really linear. Like, you know, they're happening all over the place. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the same time, you know, I guess another example, a smaller example, a weird example, I guess. The last Harry Potter book came out the same time the first iPhone came out.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more recent, but it's just like you don't think of those two things happening together.
Well,
there's a picture I want to see. It's
you don't really think of your life without a cell phone.
All right, another large one. When Dracula was written and took place, you could have worn Levi jeans, drank Coca-Cola, and owned a Nintendo product.
Damn.
And that was 1897.
Now that was actually written by somebody that actually visited the castle, right? And
Correct.
Then she was so creeped out by the Count, she wrote Dracula, right? Isn't that how it worked? Like she visited there, she was creeped out, and then went back and wrote the story.
Yeah, a mixture of the life experience and then like taking notes from like, because it was Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah, Vlad the Impaler, that's it.
And so it was like a bunch of like the historical stuff about Vlad the Impaler too. Like there's actually more odd truth to the story than everybody just focuses on like the vampire thing, but it was more like he was kind of a psycho. Like there's a reason he was called the Impaler.
But even when you look at the sense of the fixation of the bloodletting, right? That if we look in the sense of conspiracies in today's world, this is no different than the bloodletting of children for what the hell is it called?
I mean,
Josh,
you want to go into that route? I guess
adrenochrome.
We could talk about how the Queen's been around for, what is it now, 17 presidents?
Right.
Queen's still kicking.
I mean, the only thing older than her is a shark that's carbon dated to be 400 years old swimming around in the Mediterranean Sea. Like,
is she 100 yet?
99, I think.
She was born the same year as Marilyn Monroe. There we go with another random odd fact.
She was born the same year as Marilyn. What?
Correct.
Yeah. You ever seen the picture of Marilyn Monroe was told to not wear a dress that showed her shoulders?
Yep.
And there's this picture. Do you? And there's a picture of Marilyn wearing a dress showing her shoulders and meeting the Queen. And that must have just pissed the Queen off. She must have wanted to just like kick her ass, right? You don't know that story, Josh?
No, I don't know that story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I bet your lawyer friend would know that story.
But I'm looking for this. There's this TikTok out there, and I looked at it, and it was actually correct. But it was Daniel Radcliffe, the kid who played Harry Potter, and it was a picture with him and one of his buddies, right? And then they showed an actual non-related high school photo of two guys that looked exactly like them from 40 years earlier. Now, have you seen like the whole actors who have pictures in history that look exactly like them? Like there's some type of a genetic reincarnation actually happening?
There's that, and then I had another theory that leads into that too, is the actor-based reality.
Okay.
Like with like cloning and stuff, like it is the same people, and like they've been like they play I've actually covered this in a bunch of videos. This is a thing I'm really kind of into. I don't know what it is, but this actor-based reality is that a lot of these people are playing the same roles, and they just kill off different characters throughout time.
Yeah,
and it goes into where you're talking about like that, even saying JFK and Jimmy Carter are the same person, and Jimi Hendrix and Morgan Freeman were the same person, and
Abraham Lincoln and JFK, because if you heard the story between them,
just all the similarities and stuff, and like, and they're putting on makeup or becoming a different person in a different time frame. That that a lot of them are some kind of, they're either clones or they're like immortals. You know what I mean? Like we had touched a little bit on like talking about, I guess, immortals before, that living for these 2,000 and 3,000s of years.
Yeah.
And they're just playing different roles because it's entertaining to them.
So for everybody wondering, go ahead. Oh, sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
It's okay. Have you ever seen the pictures of like this general and Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And it blows me away. Is the striking resemblance of these people from the past in history to today. And you're like, whoa, this is just like...
I've seen like Eddie Murphy.
Weird.
I've even seen Ellen DeGeneres like put up against, like other people from the past and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's just... And it's odd the ones that you see put up there, I guess, with those old pictures, because a lot of them you can track back to a certain black book.
Huh. So...
Remember... Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, no, I was going to talk about Abraham Lincoln and JFK, because this is quite an interesting occurrence, and this is a historical account. And you know what? Maybe these are all the things that we're talking about right now. Like, I just told you that that archaeologists are questioning the carbon dating of dinosaur bones, not by a few million years off, by billions upon millions of years off, to be like, oh, yeah, they're 240 million years ago. Oh, no, they weren't. They're only 28,000 years ago, okay? That what if we're living really in the Matrix, and this is maybe a simulation, right? That this is an example of it. Abraham Lincoln was elected to Congress in 1846. John F. Kennedy was elected to Congress in 1946. Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860. John F. Kennedy was elected president in 1960. Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy. Kennedy had a secretary named Lincoln. Lincoln's secretary told him not to go to the theater. Kennedy's secretary told him not to go to the theater. Andrew Johnson, who succeeded Lincoln, was born in 1808. Lyndon Johnson, who succeeded Kennedy, was born in 1908. John Wilkes Booth, who assassinated Lincoln, was born in 1839. Lee Harvey Oswald, who assassinated Kennedy, was born in 1939. Lincoln was shot at the theater named Ford. Kennedy was shot in a car named Lincoln, made by a car company, Ford. A week before Lincoln was shot, he was in Monroe, Maryland. A week before Kennedy was shot, he was also in Maryland, Monroe. Lincoln was shot in a theater, and the assassin ran to the warehouse. Kennedy was shot in a warehouse, and the assassin ran into a theater. I mean, huh? Well, this goes on. Both were killed by and presidentially followed by Southerners. Both were shot in the head on a Friday. Both assassins had 3 names. Both names comprised 15 letters. Both Booth and Oswald were assassinated before their trials. Like, huh?
Conspiracies.
It's like somehow it's on repeat. The simulation's on repeat. It gets so far and starts again.
Yeah. And so you got to ask yourself, and there's that book out there, Generations. And this book is mind-blowing. It's not done by conspiracy theorists either. This is done by legitimate researchers. Generations book. So, that's not what I'm looking for. Hold on. It's this one. There it is. The book is called Generations, The History of America's Future, 1584 to 2069, by William Strauss and Neil Howe. I've read various chapters in this book. I haven't read the whole book. But William Strauss and Neil Howe posit the history of America is a succession of generational biographies, beginning in 1584 and encompassing everyone through the children of today. Their bold theory is that each generation belongs to one of 4 types, and that these types repeat sequentially in a fixed pattern. The vision of Generations allows us to plot a recurring cycle in American history, a cycle of spiritual awakenings and secular crises, from the founding colonists through a present day and well into the millennia. Now, which is interesting, and by the way, this book was written in 1998, is that they predicted the pandemic that we just had, and that 2020 to 2030 is in the same generational time gap as 1775 to 1785, which is the American Revolution.
Yeah. Interesting.
Oh, yeah. It's fascinating. But I'm wondering, maybe we live in a freaking simulation.
Yeah, I joke around and say that them playing around with CERN is what keeps setting our timeline off. It seems like every time they fire it up or something weird happens up there, things seem to shift and adjust or get more wild than it was the day before.
Maybe the people in the Matrix with us have learned how to manipulate the Matrix, right?
Maybe they realized they were in the Matrix, yeah. And maybe they're programs in the Matrix like the movie portrayed in part 2 of the movie, is that a lot of the people they were interacting with were rogue programs that were going after power and control.
Well, I mean, think about it. If there was a technology that was created that created us into like a simulation, would we know what that technology looks like? No, but they're trying to create metaverse technology that's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a world inside of a world.
Literally.
And there's actually a whole project behind that's legit. You can look it up. It was started by DARPA and is continuing today.
Yeah.
Called the Avatar Project.
We were looking at that last time you were on the show. Yep.
Yeah, and by 2045 they intend on having people living simulations.
Yeah. Nobody's ever really jumped on this, and I've said this several times on this show. It's just like Horton Hears a Who, right? Horton is this big elephant who one day walks by a flower and hears something. He looks into the flower, and there's a whole world of the Who's, right? Whoville. And yet, I mean, what's to say that we're not living in a Whoville? And we are just something smaller of a bigger
in a snow globe
reality.
on somebody's shelf.
Fuck, could you imagine that?
I mean,
I almost lost it in my chair. My mind would.
If one day you're sitting there and all of a sudden you see this thing moving towards Earth at massive speeds, and
right.
it's a microscope from another dimension.
Right. Just to zoom in and look at us. they wouldn't even know what to do.
No, they'd be like, oh my goodness, they're alive.
Or a giant eyeball just suddenly looking down from the sky, like.
Well, it's interesting too, because when you start looking at the conceptualization of simulation theory, it actually makes a lot of sense, and so I come with this from a varying perspective, right? From a scientific background, is that whenever we talk about simulation, we always want to compare it to modern day computational technology. Yeah. In actuality, though, when we say simulation, what we're talking about is a replicate universe or a replicate reality. When we talk virtual reality, we're talking about replicating actuality, replicating our universe. So when we say that the universe is a simulation, what we're saying is that it operates and functions very much like a computer system. But that analogy or that comparison actually needs to be reversed. It's our computer systems that we create simulations with that are replicating reality. And that is our computer systems that function very much like the universe. Because the computers themselves are built out upon silicon wafers, right? Microchips. And they're all based upon the principles and laws of the universe. And they're all built upon everything that's constructed of atoms in quantum physics. Which means that computer technology completely obeys the laws of the current universe and actually is developed out of the conforming of the laws of the current universe, which means that a simulation, when we say simulation theory, is just a replication of the actual technology that the universe, whatever consciousness in the universe actually is. And so we 100% live in a simulation, if you want to look at it like that. It's just a highly advanced and complex simulation. A holographic fractal reality. Exactly, Jenna. Someone must have said something funny, Jay.
No, the whiskey just got me smiling, man. But, think about it. When we leave Earth, right? When we die in the form of a human, do we really go back to where the Matrix exists?
The light at the end of the tunnel is just us exiting back out of a womb.
How about this, Jay? This is going to blow your mind. I saw this the other day. I don't know if I sent it to you. Did you see the one? You remember Hanna-Barbera? They made all the cartoons, Jetsons and Flintstones. Did you hear the one that the Jetsons and the Flintstones are actually not... The Flintstones aren't prehistoric and the Jetsons aren't futuristic. That they actually existed in the same timeline and it was a post-apocalyptic timeline. Mm-hmm. Think about it. The Flintstones were watching TV. They were at bowling alleys, right? Yeah. And the Jetsons lived above the sky.
Yep. And the rich and the poor.
You got the rich and the poor, the two-class system.
Yep. Meet George Jackson.
The ones willing to give up everything just so they can keep their job or whatever, yep. And keep with technology, and the ones of us that are like, nah, I'll do it down here.
Yep.
So the question is who had the better life?
That's a great point, isn't it?
I think
that's about perspective.
It is. Exactly. That is exactly it. Because you never heard Fred Flintstone or Barney Rubble complain about their lives. They were happy with who they were.
And they loved everything that they had going on and such. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And George Jetson loved who he was.
I mean, George loved who he loved, but he complained about his job. Mm-hmm. He complained about dog barking. Oh, yeah. He complained about, the robots malfunctioning and the daughter always asking for money and
his boy Elroy.
Yeah.
Daughter Judy.
Like
somebody said that Fred and Barney had sexy wives.
I guess I could relate more in the Fred and Barney situation because I'm happier with less. Like being being as close I'm still working on being even more so. My goal by the end of this summer is to be fully on like some solar and such and some other stuff out here that I've been working on. But like, I'm trying to get myself away from as much of it as possible because I can do it myself. I don't need somebody to tell me how to do it.
Yeah. It's interesting in perspective too, because you got to wonder, and I've thought about this because I've studied, esoteric mysteries, the occult, all this stuff for a very, very long time. And you see this progressive, constructed, highly intelligently constructed narrative formulate over thousands of years to bring about reality at its current point. And then we see the they that's always mentioned. And you got to wonder, is it really us just creating it through the information that we're inputting into the system? Think about it.
Think about, you know what? This is a great thought.
This goes into like MK Ultra and the stuff that they were like researching for this.
Yeah.
And like, like they were researching the breakdowns of reality, and they say thoughts create reality. So I mean, I say everything that comes through the television is a scripted play anyway. So who's to say these people are actually even real?
I'm going to give you a prime example of the input, right? The trucker convoy in Canada. That happens. Ontario says they're releasing their restrictions in March of 2022. Okay?
There's been a couple other countries
that kind of means that the trucker convoy is working. Also, the Netherlands, I believe, are picking up and doing a trucker convoy. Guess where else another one's headed? To D.C. in America. And so if these trucker convoys start to pick up steam, right, we go back to some terminology that we've heard before that says the people control the outcome, right? Or you have the power to change this. And we absolutely do by nonviolent actions. And this is literally, we're watching this happen in real time.
And all they're doing is honking horns.
Yep. But
do you hear about all the people shitting themselves because they're honking horns?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're losing their mind over.
Oh, yeah. People are shitting themselves at night in their sleep because of the horn honking.
Because it scares them, or because
it's
driving them insane?
It's driving them insane, so they're shitting themselves.
The complaints and the amount of memes me and my group have made over the past week making fun of these folks.
I didn't hear about the shitting themselves, but that's pretty funny.
Well, it's sad too, but I mean, going back to the original thought can reality be social engineered?
Well, sure. Why? I mean, they keep us in a constant state of fear, so it's a constant state.
But do they?
Turmoil.
Or is it our own paranoia that leads to the constant state of fear, which drives the political instability and the politicians to drive more fear that ultimately leads to a totalitarian state, because it's our paranoia that drives that? Because
I actually just covered a video on kind of this subject too, exactly what we're talking about. That's why Hollywood and it's a mind control device. The television and the movie screen is a mind control device.
But what if it just replicates what people already think and want?
But if they keep feeding it to you in like big cities and stuff like that it's the aliens are going to invade, or the destruction comes to the big city, or the destruction, the end of the world.
Right. It feeds into the social construct. People put it into their minds. So you go back into the 1600s and you start looking at reports of crop circles, and they called them the mowing devils. Right? Mowing devils. But how about this? Describe a UFO sighting from back in the 16 and 1700s. Right? They were lights or objects in the sky, more angelic in appearance, right? More Christian in their construction, or demonic in their construction, as in they were literal devils, demons, or they were angels or beings of light. Okay? Now translate that into the 1940s. You have Roswell. They show a craft on a newspaper article. Yep. And all of a sudden, it's all about saucers. Now everybody's seeing flying saucers, right? Yep. And see how now UFO sightings are these incredibly fast ships that go boom, boom, boom like this, or triangle shaped, or they look like drones or intelligently derived crafts or whatever they might be. But occasionally you get these ones that don't fit that picture. You got to wonder if maybe those are really the real ones. But you got to ask yourself, is that I wonder if the human consciousness, and I've always believed this, projects its own reality. And that we all create our own reality tunnels, and these tunnels merge into the social construct. And they devise a path of least resistance towards a reality that's constructed by the consensus. And that a lot of these things come about because of exactly this. And that Hollywood is a direct result of that. And they've learned that they can manipulate it, right? That a few people can actually put their influence into Hollywood. This creates the social construct over time. That social construct then replicates within society and creates the reality. And maybe they've been trying to create the reality of aliens for the longest time, for 50, 60 years, because it's been in the social construct, but it just hasn't manifested because that is something that might be outside of the domain. Who knows? I don't know, but it's just a cool thought.
But does that social construct then create self-fulfilling prophecies? Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so it's like when you hear about people that are very, very successful, whether that doesn't necessarily have to be monetarily wise, right? That could be somebody that is just good parents, right? But when they do that, their focus is being a good parent, right? Or somebody focuses on being successful in business, that's because they focus on being business. But they fulfill their prophecies. Are there hurdles to overcome? Absolutely. But they fulfill their own self-proclaimed prophecies. They believe what the reality is, that they're going to be successful, right? I heard an interesting story, and I'm not a big fan of the guy that owns the Mavericks. Do you know what I'm talking about? How's his name? Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban's in business. He got $81,000 in the bank, and the bank calls him up and says that, so they've been cashing these checks, and they've been going through the drive-through, and the teller is taking the checks and taking their name off of them and putting her name on them, and she pretty much stole all their money, and they had like $2,000 left. And Mark Cuban's like, we had two options, to move forward or quit. And he goes, and I chose to move forward. And think about the story with Mark Cuban. That's what I say about hurdles in your life. And all the time I hear people complain about these small hurdles, and yet it's such a roadblock for them. Move forward from it, right? There's nothing that you can't do or become in this reality. It is all up to you. And in my, interesting enough, Josh and I haven't talked in a few, maybe a week or so, but I called him today, and he doesn't know this, but the reason I called him was that I had a dream. And this is before I actually talked to Josh. Josh and I haven't texted in a couple days, so he sent me a text to a follow-up text we've been communicating about. My dream is that Josh basically got a radio show and became big, like Rush Limbaugh, like syndicated. And I was pissed off that I didn't go for the ride. In my dream, I'm pissed off. But that's not, hey, maybe that does happen, and maybe John's like, Jay, I would love you to be part of my show. That's great. Right now, my life is what it is, and I love doing this. But that's his life, right? That's where he's going. And I called him, and then he told me about the radio show, like what was happening. And I was like, I didn't tell him of this part of that, but that's the reality of it. So did I see a glimpse of his future? I don't know. Or did we co-create reality to manifest it to happen? Yeah. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, keep on dreaming it, because that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, that'd pretty awesome, man.
It would be.
Yeah, it'd be real cool.
I wouldn't, I'd be okay with millions of people making fun of me on an occasion.
Yeah, once a week.
People making fun of me.
Right?
Like I get it a lot. Like I mean, that's why I started running around with the funny name and such and the funny backdrop, because I'm just like, bring it on. Let's just make it funny. You want me to be a clown? I'll be your clown, but I'm going to tell you some interesting stuff along the way.
I'll be your Huckleberry.
I'll be your Jimbob.
That dude. All right, hey, there's. That's funny you talk about that. There's one of those weird history things. Isn't he? Dadgummit. The town that I work in, is the town where he was born at, actually.
Really?
Writer.
All right. And they say that he's buried in Denver, but they, oh crap.
Whoa.
They also say that
Blackout.
Well, I'm here. He's buried in Denver. But they also
This is
say
the
that he's
emergency
got-
alert broadcast system.
Sorry. They say he's buried in Denver, but they also have an unmarked grave down here, section spot, like tomb, above ground tomb that they claim he's buried in, right down here.
Interesting.
And like his house is still up. You can
Are we
actually
talking
go
about
visit
Wyatt
his
Earp, or are
house,
we
his
talking about
childhood
Doc
house,
Holliday?
and his
Doc
dentist
Holliday or
office-
Wyatt Earp?
Doc Holliday. And
Okay.
his dentist office is a tattoo parlor now.
Interestingly enough, he has a tombstone there, and he might not be there, right?
They claim that his body was shipped back to Griffin, Georgia, and buried at that cemetery, in the midst of like Confederate officers and shit that are buried over there.
I don't know. I don't know anything about the story.
But they also claim that he's buried. There's that whole thing up there in Denver where where he had that house up there, and they say that he's buried out there near Colorado Springs somewhere. And
Yeah.
I know Buffalo
And he-
Bill's up here.
and he's buried with the other gun that Wyatt Earp gave him. That they just sold the other one that was still in existence for millions of dollars.
Wow.
And so he's apparently buried with this, only two in existence gun out there. And they always talk about that. And back in this town, they're always talking about his gold. Like they claim he's got gold hidden in that town somewhere. And the town's an interesting place too. Like I don't live there, I just work there because it's like a weird black hole. And
Jay and I grew up in one of those towns.
Well, there's a bunch of those weird, like, when you look at it and start breaking down, like, weird numbers and stuff, like, it falls on, like, the 33-degree, like, latitude thing,
Yeah.
and, like, it's just all real super off, like, if you get stuck in that town, people don't seem to ever escape.
Hey, so what if none of that ever happened? What if the Wild Wild West? What if the whole transition west, the whole everything pre-1900, none of it never happened?
All made up.
All made up.
Sure. Look at the World's Fair stuff at the end of the 1800s.
All the Roman architecture, they tore it down. They built it up in 6 months and then tore it down.
No, I don't believe that. Like I believe that stuff that was there.
Did you ever see the inventoriums? How they?
Dude, I did a whole man. I really researched this because I'm into that because there was all this.
I'm into that stuff, baby. Yeah, oh yeah.
There was all this technology. You know what I'm saying?
So for everybody who's wondering what we're talking about, at the World's Fair at the turn of the century, I think it was the 1898 World's Fair or whatever
there
it was.
A few of them, like the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Correct. They had something known as inventoriums, and these were incubators with real babies in them. On display at the World's Fair, as if people had never seen babies before. Some of them were advertised that they would grow your baby to a full growth human being within 3 months, which is pretty odd. Now, this is legit. Not only that, is ask yourself, think about all the writers during this time.
Yeah.
Remember how they always talked about orphanages? Where the hell were all the parents?
Well, and all the orphanages that you hear about in like old movies and history and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
Little Orphan Annie.
Yeah, everywhere.
Mark Twain. Think about it. They are all. Tom Sawyer was an orphan. All these kids were orphans. Where were all the parents at? How did all these orphanages come about? Now go up. Remember when you start going into the Native Americans here in the United States of America? You go to the natives up in Canada and how the governments decimated them. Where were all the parents? Why were these kids in orphanages? And so the theory, there's a lot of weird theories about this.
They
But
wiped the parents out, kept the kids.
well, so if it goes back to the Tatarian, the whole Tatarian theory, right? That, and I have one theory, is that there was a parasite that invaded the planet, and it was taken over, and that the only way that they could kill it was to genetically modify themselves by adding an RH factor, a rhesus monkey gene, to their DNA, which changed the blood type from a alkaline to a more acidic content, of which screwed up the mating of human beings and also cut us off from our genetic memory and shortened our lifespan. But this killed multiple members of our civilization during this time. And we actually think that, so go back, do you remember the Black Plague?
Kind of like a COVID vaccine?
There you go. Black Plague is they released a virus. They released a virus to kill all those infected with the parasite that couldn't be saved. Everybody else was genetically modified with a vaccine. Okay. Now go back to the Black Plague.
In the Dark Ages, having an afterward, everything just goes black.
Right. Well, here's the thing about the Black Plague. Is you have so by the way, Tatarian civilization is estimated to be about 300 billion people on this planet. 300 billion, okay? Now, here's the interesting thing.
Explain the catacombs and all the fucking bodies.
Well, that's the thing, is the French catacombs, the catacombs under Paris. This is 30 square miles. 27 square miles have never been excavated. Only about 3 square miles have actually been excavated, okay? In those 3 square miles, there is about 6 million people. This is the bones, highly organized in an artistic fashion that was done by about 10 monks over a 5-year period. No, that's billions of bones organized in art, okay? But here's the thing, is it goes for 30 square miles, which means that there's about 100 million people buried in artistic fashion with their bones all removed from their bodies under the French catacombs. Now, there's a problem with this. During this time frame, the population of Europe, of all of Europe, was 3.5 million. The population of France was less than 300,000. So how do you have 100 million people buried in the French catacombs when the population of all of Europe was 3 million? It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't add up. And this goes back to the whole 1,000 years being added. Like, when you look at that stuff from the World's Fair, have you ever seen the dates on the walls and the videos behind them? They don't have a 1 in front of them. And that was something there. I've been looking at. It's been going around too. But
what was that in the Roman times? They used to dictate a date with an L in front of it. So it'd be L922 or L621. And what happened...
J was invented.
And then what happened is that L turned into a 1 over time. And so it's not that it actually... We skipped 1,000 years. It was just an error in time.
Yeah. They just... Somebody somewhere one day wrote that L and it didn't look like an L. Yep. And they just continued on with it.
Fucking crazy.
Right. Yeah. Like, and just because it would, and it's plausible. Think about, when we're talking about the years, not, time things happening at the same time and whatnot. Like, think about how it could have just continued, like you just said. They just made a mistake, and here we are, because they kept changing the calendar or whatever. Like, the Romans could have been walking around a lot closer than we thought they were with the carbon dating and the dinosaurs.
Exactly, the carbon dating and the dinosaurs. What if the Romans were 200 years ago?
Yeah.
Think about the human footprint.
The Romans
next to dinosaur tracks.
They were going on during the American Revolution.
We had Michael Cremo on, right? Archaeology, right? And forbidden archaeology, and he talked about the footprint in, I think, Arkansas, that's next to a dinosaur footprint that's estimated to be 300 million years old. Human footprint.
According to the current timeline, that's impossible, right?
Exactly.
But 30,000 years ago, it makes a lot more sense, right?
And could be plausible.
Yeah.
Or what about technology or artifacts that they're finding in coal that is supposed to be
a billion years old, right?
A billion years old.
Stone forms quicker than they've told us.
Exactly. Want to know why? Because if Earth has beds of oil, then to me,
it's a regenerative property.
You got it.
Absolutely.
Yep. And it's always producing oil. You just got to make sure you don't take it all.
I mean,
right?
they've been saying we were going to run out since what, the 60s? Like,
yeah.
I mean,
they're all full of shit.
I think that's been debunked already because we're going on the 20s again. So
You know, it's almost impossible to buy mineral rights in Texas.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what? I wanted to tell you or ask you if you saw it. So they're saying that there was so normally lightning doesn't stretch farther than 10 miles.
You just saw that
April of 2020. There was this one lightning hit that stretched 3 states.
420
miles.
Yeah, 420 miles.
Do you see that shit? And I was like, woo! Could you imagine how long that must have lasted?
Right.
Now, interestingly enough, the reason that I thought of that was when you talked about earlier, when you were talking about Venus and the plasmas going from Sun to Jupiter and Saturn, right?
Yep.
Did we just was April of 2020 us getting hit with a plasma more than it was a
What date was it in April?
I can tell you. It was...
Don't tell me April 20th or April 19th. So this is also interesting because I've always talked about how we're entering this this aspect of the precessional cycle where our planet, our solar system is moving through the galactic plane and we're coming into Passover, so we're coming into spring on the seasonal aspect of the analemma of how we transit the galaxy, and that this has electromagnetic ramifications, and that typically when we enter these periods, and Jay and I did a show on this months ago, that there's usually some type of mass cataclysms, and nobody usually knows why these mass cataclysms happen. And I've always said it's because we're moving through high density space into lower density space, which means that the propensity for electrical discharge between the center of the galaxy and our sun increases, which means that the charge potential of our sun increases, which means that has to be discharged amongst the planets in the solar system. And so there becomes a higher electrical potentiation within our solar system because of this transit, which increases the probability of natural disasters and cataclysms.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that goes. I guess you were talking about the Tartaria earlier. That goes into like
there you go.
The theory that goes with it with the mud flood. You know that all the because they keep digging up stuff, and that's how they're saying they found the Tartaria. They just built everything on top of the stuff after a giant cataclysm of Earth shifting. Like Earth just shifted.
But what does that also sound like? The flood of Noah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
The epics of Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Absolutely.
They say that there's these tunnel systems connecting all of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they go under they go under the ocean and everything else, and that there's underground cities, right?
Yeah.
What
Heck, even Elon Musk is building an underground highway system right now as we speak.
Yeah. What if those weren't really underground, but they are now, right? Wouldn't be any different than building on top of the catacombs. Wouldn't be any different than, meaning, what if they weren't subterranean, but,
Yeah, that's
minimally below surface, but now they're subterranean because of just, sediments building up on them over time of history.
Or a cataclysmic event where the plates shifted on top of each other, and now you've got a whole bunch of Earth that's just been covered by other Earth.
Yeah. Like, there's that civilization. You ever see that one side of the mountain where they've got all of these homes carved out? God damn, this chair's broke. They're carved out, and they're like 1,500 feet up in the air, and there's like doorways into their homes. You ever seen that mountainside? I forget what it's
in Colorado. There's one in there's one in Turkey, and there's a few in Colorado. But the one in Turkey is called Turkey Side of Mountain. I forgot the name of it. Someone will know in the chat.
Yeah. So either there was water up to that area, and those people lived closer than 1,500 feet or whatever they were, or there was land there that is no longer there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense why somebody would make their life so hard to live so high up, right? Like, everything's a challenge. Are you stupid? You're smart enough that you can dig a hole in a mountain, but you're not smart enough to put it closer to the ground?
So that comes all the way back around to the pyramids, with the oldest stone being up top and the newest stone being at the bottom. Did they carve it out of the ground?
See what you're saying. Things that make you go,
Right?
So Petra is the lost city in Jordan. So there's Petra, but how about this? Have you ever heard of the Lycian tombs in Turkey?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah,
So-
Turkey's full of a lot of places, man. Like,
Yeah, and these are the ones that Jay was talking about. These were carved in the side of mountainsides, very, very similar to Petra in Jordan.
yeah.
And then you had the Pueblo Indians in the other side of Colorado, which did the same exact thing.
different sides of the planet.
Yep.
Yeah, fuck. Right? But does that make more sense? It just doesn't make sense that any kind of civilization, other than necessity, right? Other than the need to be that high for whatever reason, builds their or their homes there, right? Or something gave away. Or here's another thought. Or they're scared of 35-foot tall Tyrannosaurus Rexes eating their asses up on the ground.
Interesting.
Okay.
Right.
And then, I mean, what about all the stuff about the city under New York City? Like, there's like,
Well, the old Dutch city that exists underneath New York City. So,
like, yeah,
I've actually done a research on this.
Well, there. Okay, all right.
So there's actually, this is 100% legitimate, is that there's a whole old Dutch pre-provincial city underneath New York City. So Wall
When we
Street.
say New York City, that's like, we've got the Bronx, we've got Manhattan.
Right. Oh, no, all of
So
New York
what's
City.
part
Yeah.
of it?
All New York,
All of it.
of it. And that Wall Street was actually built on an old wall built during that time. That you have an old church that was built there. But one thing that you have is you have the old slave tunnels underneath New York City. And I did this was one of my most popular videos ever, was the tunnels under New York City that are currently be used for human trafficking from the docks to certain buildings. So how do they get the children off the container ships when they human traffic them into the docks? Is they take them in these tunnels underneath the city, and they bring them up in the UN building, the Clinton Foundation building, or whatever it might be, and then they put them into vehicles and they take them away from there. Now, what's interesting is you have the old Dutch slave tunnels, which were then changed into butcher tunnels, and so they had their cattle tunnels. And they would drive cattle miles down, like Fifth Ave in New York City. And it would
slaughterhouses.
Slaughterhouses. And people would be like, oh, we don't want to see that. So they took them under the old Dutch slave tunnels.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but I guess I was leaning more towards the fact that they say that there's still people that dwell in these city limits down in these parts. Like, that's, like, there's
definitely people that live within the underground. I think
there's people that have lived probably their entire life in in this underground New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, like, there's certain parts that people travel. People have been trying to snoop around and stuff, and you get physically chased out of there and such. Like,
yeah.
There's one in Seattle. There's one in Seattle, Washington, for sure. I know about this.
I want to
Philadelphia too. They say there's a bunch of underground stuff out there in the Philadelphia area.
And
I
Washington,
there was
D.C.
a YouTube
Yeah, there
reporter
too.
that actually has a series about the underground cities. And what he did was he befriended a couple people who basically took him into the layers of these underground cities, and it, obviously it's not filled with the greatest people in the world, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people there to hide, whether that it's mental disorders or drug or criminal, but yeah, I wouldn't be walking in these places to check them out, right?
Right? Yeah. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, now go into the story of Phil Schneider.
Oh, there. Yeah. And
Bill Schneider,
and
the alien guy?
operation of all the dumbs.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I was thinking of when we were having this conversation, right? I think it was right before the election time. In my area, the U.S. government was looking for underground places to train military personnel, and there was an ad in my area looking for that space, because in my area, There used to be underground areas or underground labs where they did tests of nuclear radiation on people and stuff like that. So this area where I live has that type of capacity for them to do the training. But interestingly enough, as Josh, you were talking about Venus and being a comet and everything else, I was thinking to myself, what if that training really wasn't for Earth, but rather the moon?
Well, how about this? Is
in the caverns in the moon, right?
do you know what Edwin Hubble and a lot of the early astronomers used to say about Mars?
What's that?
That Mars had caverns on top, tunnel systems, caverns, and that people lived in the cavern systems underground.
Lived inside Mars.
Yep, they lived inside Mars in the caverns.
I mean, even a lot of ancient, like Native American history and stuff, talks about them coming from their ancestors coming from underground.
Yep.
I thought you were gonna say Mars has nuts and mountains don't.
Mars has nuts and mountains don't.
Anyways, the whiskey is going good tonight.
Oh man!
I think we got to do beards and whiskey more.
I got. Actually, it's a show we were contemplating doing called Whiskey and Beards, just dude talk, and so we could. I mean, it'd probably be the same. It'd probably be the same conversation every time, but oh way.
No, I don't think it would. I mean, think about it. If the subject line is open about anything, we could talk about Kim Kardashian and Kanye West are on the outs, and they had a public display of argument.
But I don't know anything about that. If you want to say Kardashians to me, I'm gonna be like, what, Satan? Because if you've seen like these girls are like the seed of Satan.
Right.
I would agree with you. But you know, but like if somebody brought that up amongst whiskey and beards, then everybody's response is nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, nobody gives a shit.
Because I don't care. But I think it's interesting how you see the media in its play on manipulating you to be involved into their drama, right? They do that, man.
Well, how about I want to bring something into the public view here. So I don't watch football. I don't watch the NFL. I don't watch sports. It's just something I gave up a long time ago. But I know people who do. And I'm in a few text message chats where they talk a lot about it. And everybody for the past few months has been saying it's all rigged. The NFL, it's all rigged. It's all rigged. It's all rigged.
I've been saying that for years.
What just happened with the Miami Dolphins coach? Miami Dolphins coach. Have you heard about this?
The racial thing, yep.
No. He was paid to throw the game.
Yeah,
he was paid by the owner of the Miami Dolphins. So the accusation is that he was paid by the owner of the Miami Dolphins to throw the game to, I think, Cleveland.
There was a player that said that he outed it about being scripted or whatever too.
Yeah, they incentivized losing.
Yeah. I mean, it's the WWE. Even the NFL has said they're an entertainment industry, not a sport.
But so you got to ask yourself: was it the public mindset of everybody saying it's rigged that created that situation to manifest, or was it that situation actually occurring that caused people to think that?
Listen,
I mean, there's been some situations in the NFL over the years that have been awfully coincidental, and I don't like coincidence. Like, you know, I mean, like I'm one of those guys that I don't believe it's real. I believe it's set up. You know,
it could be. That Buffalo Chiefs game was
13 seconds you traveled 68 yards. Bullshit.
Against the best defense in the freaking NFL.
In the fucking league. Bullshit. That whole game was bullshit. The NFL is 100%, no doubt, in my opinion, and only an opinion, fake. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
It's WWE.
You are what? Look. One thing I miss about Western New York is how much Buffalo fans love Buffalo, bro.
But you know what Buffalo fans are? They love fucking just being this, right?
They love getting so close and losing.
Wide right, 13.
Sitting in 6 foot of snow out there in the stands. They don't care.
Yep, they do not care. They 100% believe it's real. You know, when I knew the Bills were going to lose, when 3 of the 3 games, all visiting teams won. Okay, statistically, There's no way 4 teams go into home field advantage and all win. I knew they were going to lose when that happened. Okay. Number 2, if you think about it, who wants to see the Super Bowl that we're getting, right? Like, are you fucking kidding me? All that I think happens is owners call each other and they're like, hey, I'll split with all of the playoff teams. I'll split $100 million or $250 million with you guys this way, and this way, as long as you let me win. Yep. Like Josh, you said, the owner paid that coach to lose the game.
Yeah,
what
incentivize
that the guy from Cleveland didn't call up and be like, hey, I really need this win. I'll make
how about
these
this?
trades with you.
Social engineering. Hey, look, we're having a hard time in the city. The state could really use a moral boost. It would take people's focus off of vaccine mandates, right? Like, this is how they play the social construct.
Absolutely. Keep it going. Like
it's all the whole world is WWE.
Now I want you to think of this.
Vince McMahon come up with the idea.
Vince McMahon sitting in the backdrop. Okay.
I want you to think of this.
Right.
Okay.
Three visiting teams, all the lower seeds go into home field advantage in the last round, the quarterfinals or quarterfinals of the playoffs, and they win. All right? And they beat the spread. So what does that mean? Vegas made a ton of money. Do you know how many people would have bet on home field advantage and the seed ranking? Vegas made millions.
Absolutely.
And to top it all off, some of these betting houses in New York were allowed to start betting in New York. So online gambling became legal in New York. And they were pounding.
It's almost like the odds of 4 quadrillion to 1 of Joe Biden winning the presidency after midnight Eastern Standard Time on election night. I mean, like, wow, the people who put money on that one, or at least funded it, I bet they got paid off pretty damn well.
Yeah.
Because I lost all my money on the bets that I put up that Donald Trump would win. And I put up a lot of money that night that Donald Trump was going to win a re-election.
Damn.
Yeah.
I bet you there was other people that did the same.
Yeah, absolutely. There is billions of dollars traded that night that Donald Trump would win.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then somebody that when he didn't, somebody else made billions of dollars on top of billions of dollars.
The whole world's a stage, man. The whole world is a stage.
I agree.
You got to question what is actually real these days.
And the best way to do it is follow the money.
Yeah.
If you start following the money, you can't not follow the money and then find coincidence in the same routine in the same spot.
Think about this and go to like the CIA assassinations. Martin Luther King Jr. You got John F. Kennedy. You have John Lennon. What did these people have? What ability did they have?
Aside the charisma to change people's minds.
Annie, I know he did win. I know, but I lost in Vegas. But, okay, you're right. The ability to change people's minds. The ability to transform reality away from the status quo.
Correct.
And that's why they were killed. Because guess what? Reality actually is consciously created by the social paradigm. By people thinking together and believing together and organizing their thoughts in a social construct, all focused towards the same outcome. And when someone like John Lennon comes about and says, oh, reality's real, government's horrible, and you shouldn't trust them, and you should think for yourself, that's dangerous to the system.
I completely agree. I truly feel that way because that's why fear is played on your radio, your television, your Facebook page all day long from millions of different angles, but it's all 6 companies giving you the same.
Well, yes, five media companies.
But we're down to 5.
Yeah.
But it's 5 media companies spinning the same story 10 different ways to keep people confused and in a fear, based reality.
Right.
Which, has led to the chaos of 2020 and beyond.
Did something just happen on the Olympics?
Yes.
My buddy literally just texted me like a minute ago and said,
well.
"Dude, are you watching the Olympics?"
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't watching the Olympics. I did know about Putin and whatever the dude in China's
Xi
name
Jinping
is, announcing their unionship or whatever at the beginning of the Olympics when it kicked off this morning or whatever. I actually have information on that. They announced this morning.
That's interesting. My buddy's saying that they're publicly blasting China.
Really?
Yeah, they're talking a whole bunch of crap about China.
Who is?
The commentators, I think NBC is what he's saying. I'm waiting for them to update me, but
somebody was saying that.
There it is. Let's see. That Putin arrived in Beijing for the Winter Olympics with the gas supply deal for China, and that they have announced they've mixed politics and sports, and they're announcing an alliance with Russia as of this morning.
Now, isn't that interesting? Because this is exactly what I've been talking about, is that China and Russia are basically rogue entities of the globalist and New World Order, that multi-headed hydra. This is why George Soros came out against Xi Jinping, but as well that the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, supports Xi Jinping, right? There's multiple different alliances here. And I think there's a lot of backdoor deals. But guess what, guys? We weren't invited to that table. In the sense of how reality moves forward and how the construct of reality is designed, we weren't invited to see how that happens and unfolds.
Nope.
No, you're right.
And that's unfortunate. He was saying NBC is publicly blasting China over and over at the Olympics right now.
Oh, wow, interesting. Of all companies too.
Yep.
Whiskey and Beards, dude. It's a good show. Fucking gonna listen to it all the time.
Listen to you.
I'm being serious. This is
Whiskey and Beards.
Whiskey and Beard. I think it's a really good format, and I was actually thinking about it. I was like, man, our first sponsor could actually be a whiskey manufacturer.
We gotta find a whiskey manufacturer.
Yeah. I was thinking about who doesn't want to have us endorse whiskey for them, right? Even if we talk about local like craft distilleries, right? I'm sure
I know they're everywhere around here. I'm sure they're everywhere around where y'all are too.
Better trademark that name or something.
I already did. I already got the domains.
Whiskey and Beards?
Yeah, Whiskey and Beards.
Sweet.
I got one of them. I got a few of them.
What do you guys? I would love to know what the fringe audience really thinks of this show tonight. Was it 2 thumbs up? Was it a thumb down? I want to know.
Yeah, what did you guys think?
What did you guys think? Redpill whiskey, somebody said.
Redpill whiskey. I wish we could have our own beer named after us. That would be actually pretty cool.
I know. So I should say, Josh and I have a friend that is a craft brewer here where I live, and the dude helped another craft brewer out in the Albany area get set up. And these guys came to his anniversary party, and they had a shirt with his picture on it, and they were like, "Do you know Dave?" Right? I think that's cool, right? Like, they respect him so much. They're like, "You should know this guy," right? Like, if you don't know this guy, you should know this guy.
In the craft beer industry, right?
In the craft beer industry, right? Like, and so they actually came out with a double IPA.
And they're probably listening right now.
Yeah. They came out with a double IPA. These guys did. They came out with a double IPA with his photo on it and says, "Do you know Dave?"
Yeah, it's an actual beer that they came out for this dude. It's called Do You Know Dave. It's a double IPA called Do You Know Dave.
Literally. Like, to me, you're the coolest fucking dude in the world if you get a beer named after you, right? Like,
yeah,
you're so iconic. You're like, "Do you know Dave?"
He's known nationally, though. He is probably one of the top master brewers in the country.
Oh, wow.
And I know he wouldn't toot his own horn like that, but he is. And I don't know, and if you haven't had his beer, oh my God, you have to have it. Look, he doesn't. They don't sponsor this show at all.
No, they don't.
Mortalis Brewery, guys, check them out. Mortalis Brewery, phenomenal. I'm giving them a pitch. Yep,
it really is. So what they've done is have mastered the infusion of the sour IPA, or even their takes on barrel aged beers, man. They in Beer Advocate, they have the #1 coffee stout in the world. I mean, that's pretty fucking cool for a 3-4-year-old craft brewer out of Rochester, New York, right?
Yeah, phenomenal beer.
I think they should sponsor us. I think they should sponsor the radio show.
Well,
right?
if one of them are listening right now, then maybe that could happen. They should actually. It would be great if they did sponsor. We'll talk to you. Should mention that to them that I'm going to be on that radio station. Can't mention the radio station that I'm going to be on that, and that they can sponsor that show, and I'll plug them in it.
I think it's a great idea. And he does have a beard, so he could actually come on the show.
Whiskey and Beards.
Whiskey and Beards. I know the show's not Whiskey and Beards on that, but
yeah.
But hey, whoever knows? You could have a 4-hour show like Joe Rogan, and one of your parts of your show just be Whiskey and Beards, man. Right?
It'd be fun.
The Whiskey and Beard Hour.
So for everybody out there, I'm drinking Jefferson's Reserve. This stuff is tasty, man. It's a good whiskey. It's definitely a good whiskey.
Tell us about the undertones, Josh.
I have no idea. I'm new to this. I just got over COVID. I just feel it later on, and it's got a nice a euphoria. How about that? Like, did you ever notice different alcohol?
Are fucking rock.
Isn't this crazy? Different alcohols give you different buzzes.
100%. Yep.
There's vodka buzzes, wine buzzes. Wine buzzes make me all plush.
Yep. So this is what I'm drinking, which is Woodford Reserve.
Oh, that's good stuff.
It really is. It's really, really smooth. So what does smooth mean to me in the whiskey world? It means it doesn't burn the shit out of my throat, right?
I'll have to grab my bottle. I gotta share it.
Yeah. And it's really sweet. So it has a sweet undertone to it. But it's just really smooth, has a little bit of sweetness to it. It's just fantastic.
All right. And I'm just a poor redneck, so I got some Canada Club whiskey.
There you go.
Hey, man, it's all good.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to bring in the Black Velvet.
No. It's just a premium aged, cheap whiskey.
Jimbob, can you get 4 Roses there?
Yes.
4 Roses. It's 4-barrel rose or something like that. 4 Roses, I think it is.
Yes, I actually know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So how much is it there right now? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. So
here, it's skyrocketed in price because they stopped selling here. Okay. Oh. Yeah. So its value, let's just say you're buying, a bottle this big, $50, right? 40-ish.
Right.
$250. Exactly.
Yep. But that man, I'll tell you, when I was living in New York, that's how it seems, man. Everything within New York State is outrageously priced, and if you can get it from out of state, you're doing a good job.
Yeah. But that's the thing. They're right?
They've created their own. They've created the best black market in the country.
Ooh, whiskey?
No, New York State.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. No, right? And I do think that part of the reason you can't get it is because of New York State. They something happened to it, and they basically told New York State to pound salt.
I wouldn't doubt it. I'm telling you, I figured it was time to give up and get out of there when they told me I needed a permit to have a yard sale.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. That's insane.
Yeah, no, it's I'm not a big drinker these days. Occasionally,
no,
I'll have one.
A little sip of this and just boom.
But I was hanging out with Joe Altman earlier, and I'm on his show, and he's like, "Do you drink whiskey?" And I'm like, "I'll drink some whiskey." At first, I actually said no. Then his producer was in the window, I'm like, and I'm like, he came in and he gave me a half a glass. And he gave Joel like half of what I had. I'm like, He's like, different glasses. They just look different. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
By the end of the show, I'm like, all right, I got to drive home now. This ain't very good. I was okay. But I'm like, I'm going to have another one when I get home. So, and that's fine. I went to the gym today. I ran my mile today, so I'm okay. I'm going to go tomorrow. But no, it's interesting because there is a craft market around various types of alcohols. I mean, there's a craft whiskey, there's craft beer, there's craft gin.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, these things are big markets, too.
Yeah. And you know what? They're in my area, there just happens to be some people that do those things. But it's definitely a conversation that we should have. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the radio thing for you, and I hope it pans out.
I do too. I hope that it blows up.
Yeah, and I hope Jimbob. I hope you come on. I hope I'm on.
Anytime you guys want me on anything, I'm always down.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're coming definitely for sure. We've already told you that.
And I think we should just do a podcast. I honestly do this. I told Guy Plus Beard, like, we just shot the shit one day, and I was like, why are we just doing this on text? We just get on the show and do it. Get Vince on here. We all just kind of, do our own Joe Rogan thing, man. He has, and the cool thing is too is that we can have some really cool guests. Josh knows people, man.
I'm connected. Apparently, I'm connected.
You are. Yeah, we get some cool people. Wendy Rogers. Let's get her on the show. Candace from
my kind of like right hand admin or whatever on most of my pages and such. As soon as the first time I said your name, he was like, I know who that is, and he was started talking about books and different stuff like that, and I was like, yeah, that's the guy you're talking about.
So it's interesting too because I like having certain types of people in the show. I don't like interviewing people. I like having conversations with people, and I think I think when you organize a show more towards a conversation, right? People get comfortable, they open up more, and the flow of the information. We had Seth Holhouse on the other day. So Seth Holhouse, Rise TV, Man in America, he made a 15-minute documentary, the plot to steal the presidency or the plot to steal the election. It went viral. Donald Trump actually posted it, pinned it on his Twitter, like millions upon millions of views. And Seth is freaking phenomenal. We're gonna actually have him on Fringe here in the next few weeks. But afterwards he's like, dude, that was awesome. He goes, it's about asking people about themselves, right? Like, who are you? How did you get started? And not many people like to have that. I'm this or I'm that, or this is what I'm doing, and it's a very hard conversation. And it's like, no, I just want to know about you. Who are you? How did how did those ideas formulate for you to produce these actions that brought you to this point in your life? How did that all happen? Right? That's the conversations I like having. And I like when people actually open up to that.
Yeah. That's great. I actually entirely understand what you're saying there. Like, it's just better to have a flowing, relaxed conversation of guys drinking whiskey with beards than it is to try to sit here and structure something and keep it at a certain schedule at a time.
Yeah, don't be something you're not, right?
Yeah.
And nobody here is going to say we're Barbara Wawa, right?
My name is Barbara Watos.
My name is Baba Wawa, and this is 60 Minutes.
I think
and people, a lot of people have said that after our shows on Fringe, they just love the format. They they enjoy just how we do the shows, or how you do the shows rather, and it's a style. But I think, dude, quite honestly, I think you put out some great shows. I think they're better with me on them.
No, they are.
But they, and quite honestly, I think that when you do get away from that geopolitical, geofinancial, and you just put a show on, I'm not saying you can't talk about it, but shows like this, I think, just really just cover all bases and will bring more people to your listening market.
I agree, but it's hard to do all the time. You have to cover the news. You have to cover the daily events. You have to keep people informed of the truth and how you see it. I mean, I got yelled at yesterday. I had someone who's a subscriber, and they came to me and they're like, "I'm done with the fear mongering. I don't, I'm unsubscribing." and you need to stop the fear mongering. It's like Glenn Beck just said the same thing I said. Like, I'm not fear-mongering. This is what is happening if you align all the dots. If you look at the world and you see what's happening, this is inevitable. It's not fear-mongering when it's inevitable, right? And I'm just sitting here warning people, and I'm like, I can sit here and tell people all day long, and I used to be that person. Trump and the Patriots are in control, and everything's being orchestrated from the backside, and don't worry, just sit back and eat your popcorn. You don't have to do anything. But that's not reality.
Yeah. The problem is that people aren't doing anything.
Right.
Because they think somebody else is doing it for them. And that's part of the problem. And here, I'll be frank. You've been
just be Jason. Just be Jason.
Yeah. Arr. So, I've been listening to Dan Bongino because he goes on my radio station at like 3:00, and I do listen to Glenn Beck. And you know what? They both say the same thing. They both say, and it's been really interesting to listen to Bongino, who I called out on this show and said he was a farce because he's not pulling the narrative. He's giving you the mainstream narrative. You know what? He really isn't anymore. He's saying the Great Reset is here, folks. Dan Bongino, mainstream media, mainstream news, is saying the Great Reset is here. And I know we're on YouTube right now, but listen to what he's saying. He's saying it's going to happen. Dude, this isn't conspiracy theory. This isn't fear-mongering. This is be prepared for it. It's going to happen.
Nothing can stop what's coming.
The system has to go down. If you look at the system and you just say that this current system is to deprive you of your human rights, right? To be happy and allow you to pursue happiness. Everything about this system is to destroy you and make you miserable. From the food you eat, to your health system, to your government, to the monetary taxes you pay.
To the whiskey.
To the whiskey. Everything about this system is negative. The whole system has to come down and burn it. It's got to be burned up, and then we will see a different side.
Absolutely.
And it's not fear-mongering. It's the truth. There's no sugarcoating it. There's no better way to say it's going to be a rough effing time. Plain and simple. I'm sorry. So there you go, Josh. It's not just you creating it.
Yeah.
Bongino saying it.
Glenn Beck.
And Glenn Beck is saying it. There's another guy that I listen to in the mornings, first thing in the morning. He's saying it.
The reality is the weak men are creating the bad times.
That's right.
Yeah, plain and simple.
But it's how it has to happen. It has to go back around.
That's right.
If you don't have a beard, you're weak. I think that's what it's going to come down to. If you don't have a beard anymore.
So my buddy Jim Price show, he's got like these golden long locks of hair, right? And everybody's always, every event that he's at, people are like, dude, can I touch your hair? He's like, yeah, sure. They're like, what kind of conditioner do you use, right? Like, he has some brilliant hair. And he goes, I used to have short hair. And he goes, I started growing my hair long. He goes, he met someone, and the guy was talking to him about, said, look through history. Did you notice in the 17 and the 18 and the 1600s that judges and royalty and the parliaments and so forth, they used to wear wigs to make their hair longer. Vikings, long hair. All the warriors of the ancient world all had long hair. The Scots, long hair. And the guy was telling them, why do you think they had long hair? It's because it increases their virulence. It increases their testosterone. It increases their manhood. It gives them a more energy. Remember, what was it? Highlander. Long hair, Duncan MacLeod. Is that it gives them this your hair is like on cats, right? The whiskers of cats and the hair on dogs. It's electromagnetic receptors. And so it increases your electrical propensity of your body, your electrical potentiality of your body by having long hair, because you become more receptive to the environment around you. And he said ever since he's been growing his hair long, he's like, dude.
Samson.
Yeah. He's like, ever since I've been growing my hair long, I feel amazing.
I'm growing my hair long.
It's that comparison's awfully funny because up until a few years ago, I actually used to have down my back long hair.
Really?
And ever since I shaved my head, I feel so much older and not what I used to feel. And you sitting here talking about that, it's got me thinking. I'm like, man, maybe I need to let it grow. Because like I felt amazing back when it was there, and now I feel old half the time and can't get up in the morning.
Yep. Well, and I think
actually told my son to get a haircut today because he's got Aiden's got like the long hair.
Yeah, the
like,
floppy long hair.
If you guys have ever seen Dazed and Confused, is the dude that's gonna have the kegger and his dad shows up. He's got hair kind of like that, but it's even longer. And I was like, Aiden, you gotta cut your hair. Now I'm gonna go retract that statement. I'm gonna be like, keep it, Samson, keep it.
Keep it. Let me know how you feel.
Yeah, right.
My boy has long hair like that too. My boy Hayden, he's like 6, but he's still got hair that's in that weird curl stage now.
We just got, my son actually has Aiden's hair, so he had hair down to here. It was just drooped down to the side. He actually just got it cut yesterday.
Yeah, dude, you have a son named Hayden?
I have a son named Hayden. Yes.
Yeah, my son is named Aiden, Aydan.
Nice.
My dad's name was Daniel, so I got Aydan, so Adan.
And a Dan. Isn't that what our father did one day? He's like, "Did you ever notice that your son's name's A Dan?" Typical narcissist, right?
Yeah, right. No, Dad, it's Aiden. We just didn't want to spell it like everybody else, so we added an A to it. Right?
Oh man.
Okay.
Crazy. Hey guys, we're going to be going to Fringe After Dark, our subscription show. If you guys want to take part in that, you can go to thesocialredpill.com and you can grab one of the subscriptions there that includes Fringe After Dark. I think it's the $5.99 or the $10.99 membership on up that includes that. We'll be doing that here it's set for 45 after 15-2, but give us about 10 minutes, and we'll be jumping in on that Zoom for Fringe After Dark. But guys, tomorrow night you got Vince coming to you with Makes You Think with another episode tomorrow, and then we'll have our night streams, Redpill night streams, playing here in a little bit after Fringe After Dark. And then also tomorrow night and throughout the weekend, it'll be a 44-hour night stream that starts tomorrow night after Makes You Think. I'm going to try to get a new playlist going and a whole bunch of new stuff in that evolution so you guys can have some really cool content to watch. If you guys are loving that, please don't forget, like, share, comment, subscribe, bell notification button, all that good stuff. Head over to redpills.tv, subscribe there as well. Show us that love. I hope you guys had a great night tonight. I had some much fun. This was an awesome show. Thank you, Jay and Jimbob, for joining us. And some of you guys, will see you at Fringe After Dark. If you want to know more information on that, go to the Social Red Pill. Just go in there, post, ask the questions, and we'll guide you to it. There'll be plenty of people showing you where you can get in on that at. And everybody else, you guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you here soon. Take care.